A minute to find that. The scripture in 2 Chronicles is duplicated in 2 Kings 15 and 33. It's the same verse. And we're going to talk about a woman named Jerusha today. So if you have 2 Chronicles 27 and 1, this is what it says. Jotham was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 16 years. His mother's name was Jerusha, daughter of Zadok. And as I just said, that is duplicated in 2 Kings 15 and 33. These are the only two verses that you will hear about the woman called Jerusha. I have a friend named Jerusha. That name means inheritance or heritage. And to the Jews today, when they name their daughter Jerusha, and it's spelled with a Y in Hebrew, and it's pronounced Jerusha, when they use that name, they do it because they want children to remember their godly heritage in the Lord. And it's a very common Jewish name. But in order to talk about Jerusha, we got to go back and talk about some background. Now, the scripture just said that she was the mother of Jotham, the king of Judah. Now remember, Israel and Judah are two separate countries. The 10 tribes were Israel, the 2 tribes were Judah. I want to remind you again, Jesus was from the line of Judah. And if you go to Matthew, chapter 1 and verse 9, it links King Jotham, which would also make Jerusha, in the heritage of Jesus Christ, the Messiah. Now, Jotham was the son of Uzziah, the king of Judah. He is also known as, let me flip over here. He's also known as Ozias and Azariah, but we know him mostly by Uzziah. Now, Jotham reigned in the 700s BC, BC being before Christ. And Uzziah, that king, which was Jotham's dad, Jerusha's husband, he was a godly king. He loved the Lord. He loved Jehovah God. But he made a mistake. We all make mistakes. Pastor Terry's preaching on second chances. I'm glad that we serve a God of second chances, because I'm one of those who need second chances. Uzziah messed up. At one point in his life, he went into the temple and he did what was only supposed to be done by the priest. Now, we can remember a similar situation with King Saul, that he got tired of waiting on the prophet Samuel and he did it himself. Uzziah, for whatever reason, he went in and did what he should not have done in the temple of the Lord. And as a result, God punished him with leprosy. And he had leprosy till the time of his death. And he actually lived in a separate house, because the way it was back then, there was no cure for leprosy. Only God could cure it. Now today we have modern techniques that can actually cure leprosy. Now, when Jotham was serving alongside his dad as king, he was what we would know today as a regent. A regent is somebody that comes in and serves alongside the king, and that's what Jotham did. But now the mother, Jerusha, given by her name in Jewish tradition and Jewish history, because you got to understand, there's other things that tell us things about these people in the Bible besides just the Bible. And according to this, her name being inheritance, being godly inheritance, meant that she was a woman who sought after God. She loved the Lord. And according to Jewish tradition and history, again, she taught her son, Jotham, to be a godly man. And the Bible tells us that King Jotham served the Lord all the days in his life. Now, if you go back to that chapter that we read from, if you go to verse 2, it says something that sounds a little bit strange. It says, unlike his father, he did not enter the temple. Now, that doesn't mean that he didn't go to the temple to worship. It means that unlike his father, he didn't make the same mistake that his father did. Now, those of us who are parents, we don't want our children to make the mistakes that we made. Right? They probably will. But being older, and I hope wiser, we want our children to be smarter than what we are, especially when it comes to the things of the Lord. If I knew back then what I know now, I'd be a better Christian. I'd be a better servant of the Lord. I think we can all say that. If we knew back then what we know now. But Jerusha wanted so deeply for her son not to make the mistakes of the father that I believe, and Jewish tradition tells us, that she taught him well. And it's a very common name among the Jewish people today, Jerusha, because it means an inheritance of the Lord. To teach our children and our grandchildren and those after us the ways of the Lord and the goodness of the Lord. Now, Jotham, let me give you a little bit of history with Jerusha and her son Jotham. He was king during the time of Isaiah, Hosea, and Amos, and Micah. He built or rebuilt the porch in Solomon's temple. His name, Jotham, means God is complete or God is perfect. I believe when Jerusha named her son, she wanted him to have a godly name. She had one. She wanted him to have one. God is perfect. We aren't. We get second chances by the Lord because he knows we need them. Pastor Terry said the other Sunday, second, third, fourth, fifth chances. And Jesus came along and said that we need to give people 70 times 7 chances. He said to forgive 70 times 7. That doesn't just mean 490 times. Don't keep a record, because the Bible also tells us love takes no record of wrongs in 1 Corinthians. But I want to leave you with one final scripture, Deuteronomy 6 and 7. And I believe this verse of scripture is very complementary to what the woman Jerusha was. This is what it says. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. I believe as women who serve the Lord, it's good to have Bibles all over the house, even though we can pick it up on our computer and on our phone and our iPads. I still believe it's good to have the Bible laying around. I believe it's good to have scriptures on the wall. Put on the refrigerator with a magnet, because everywhere you go, you're going to see that scripture and you're going to read it, and everyone who comes into your household is going to see that scripture and they're going to read it. Write them on the door frames of your house. Now, doesn't mean you got to go out there and mark on your door, ladies, but you can certainly hang something on your walls. So when you hear the name Jerusha, if you never hear it again, remember it was about a woman who raised a godly son, and she wanted him not to do the sins of the father.